Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the Adventures Club. I couldn't even say it this today. The Adventures. I'm so excited because we're in Budapest.
Oh, come on.
Adventures Travel Club.
You'll do anything
Did
for
I say
an
that?
excuse, won't you?
I guess so.
No.
Anyway,
it is exciting. You are right, Mark.
It was because
sure.
those pictures are really breathtaking. I tell you, that's the Blue Danube River, and it is in Budapest. And even though my mouth doesn't work today, fortunately the camera did. And we have a guide who's going to tell us a little bit more as we go along.
Oh, but look at that.
Isn't that beautiful?
Just take a look at that.
Oh, I love it. That's really nice, isn't it?
You know, you don't even need to talk. You can just look at this
Maybe
and absorb it and
maybe I should have shut up right from the start there.
I didn't mean you.
Oh.
I meant either one of us.
Oh, okay.
But now it's the opportunity.
Anyway, we got up on top of the hill, and we're going to drive over actually to another area that is really, really very, very nice. There's so much to see. But let's try and listen to our guide right now.
The castle was originally constructed in the Middle Ages, early Middle Ages, then blew up by the Turks, then reconstructed in the 18th century, and that's more or less what we will see. But it's also a district, the so-called first district of Budapest, one of the 22. 16 of the districts are on the Pest side, on the flat plain area, and only 6 are on this side. But these ones are more extended because of the hills, so the nature here is different. Most of the people live still on the other side, as here people have gardens and so on, so the whole thing is bigger, but with less inhabitants, as you see. So this is the house that costs on your left side $500,000. About 1 square foot in Buda in this area to buy costs about $100. Now the average wage in the country per month is still not more than $200, which does not mean that people make only that amount of money. This was the old Serbian quarters of the city, where the cities were not typically inhabited by Hungarians, not at all. The citizens were more foreigners than Hungarians, as because of the wars there were so few Hungarians left that it would be hard to say that anybody is full-blood Hungarian in this country. So there came settlers from all over Europe, basically from Germany and Austria, to inhabit the land, to repopulate the land after the invasions of the Turks, Mongols and so on. And ever since in the cities, German was spoken more than Hungarian.
That big noise that you hear, that thumping, is the the trees hitting the top of the bus. We had a double-decker bus, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 all over the place.
Pretty tough on the bus.
Yeah, and pretty tough on the trees.
So this is the Royal Palace and the old Royal Palace ruins on top of the hill. Here, left-hand side, the red and white house is the medical museum. In this building was born Dr. Semmelweis. Okay. Dr. Semmelweis, the savior of women. On your right, an Israeli casino at the moment, Israeli owned. It was the water tower that furnished water to the royal palace. Royal gardens on your left-hand side, left in this way by the Second World War. During World War II, most of Budapest was bombed to the ground, and this has not been renovated ever since, unfortunately, and no one has any idea what to do with it and out of what money to renovate it, and it costs more and more, of course, with time passing. We are going up now to the castle hill, castle area, and we will do 2 things. We will, let's say, first visit the National Gallery, which is in the Royal Palace itself. On your left-hand side, the Royal Palace, with museums only and exclusively. And that's where we are going to have a short visit in the National Gallery, which would mean Hungarian paintings and only Hungarian paintings. All the foreign paintings are exhibited on the other side in the Fine Arts Museum, which we will also see, but also only the outskirts, from outside. I mean, outside, not inside. Whereas here in the Royal Palace, which was very much bombed, heavily bombed during World War II, to such extent that they considered that it was not savable anymore, but they still reconstructed it after the Second World War. And in the interior was not re-established, so it looks like the Louvre in Paris. It's a modern building inside, but the outskirts are still the old Baroque style building. The funicular goes up every 5 minutes to the castle, to the royal palace. And here you see the zero stone, the 0 kilometer stone on your left hand side. From here they measure distances in Hungary. So this is considered to be the middle of the country, but geographically it is not, just symbolically or theoretically. In front of us, that slows us down. This is the Adam Clark Square, otherwise. He was a Scottish man, and he constructed the chain bridge on your right side, called chain bridge because of the little lamps that illuminate it at night and looks like a chain, like jewelry. There were two Clarks, Scotsmen, both, but they were not related. One designed the bridge and the other constructed it, carried it out effectively, and in the mid-19th century. This being the first permanent standing bridge between the two sides united Budapest in this way. The Parliament building on your right side, on the other side of the river Danube. We are on the right banks of the river at the moment. Same royal palace from a different angle, or oblique. The tunnel was constructed in the same year as the chain bridge, in 1852, and here we have arrived to what we call the first district, the castle. There are two terms here to distinguish. The castle, which would be a fortified seat or a fort with people living in it in a city, but it's surrounded by walls. Now the walls are not there really anymore because they were all more or less ruined during the Turkish wars at the end of the 17th century, when Buda was fought back from the Turks by the United Christian Forces. But we still call it castle. And there is the other term, the royal palace. So the palace is just a building. It's not a fortification, it's just a building. And that's where there is the National Gallery, which we want to see, I mean, roughly. Not in details, because it would take a day. And then after visiting the palace and the National Gallery, we will walk on and to the... And we walk on and see the Matthias Church up there here, or Matthias Church, named after a king of the 15th century, who got crowned here, and his weddings were also held here. And that's why, ever since, this became the Coronation Church.
You'll see it again.
This is the #1 church of the country.
Well, there is so much to see once we get up on top of the hill here. And in this program and the next program, we're going to be visiting a lot of these buildings. But right now, I want you to take a look at this building right in front of us. This was one that nothing had been done to. Now, this was the damage during that was done during World War II. So you can see a lot of nicks here that were made by bullet holes. That's actually what they were. And our guide told us that this was all from World War II. So, and then some of these, it looks like somebody just took a machine gun and just went for broke on some of it, you know?
Yeah, it's amazing that they didn't do some reconstruction on it because they've done such good things everywhere. But Marv, it's really interesting that Budapest has been built and destroyed so often that the layers of history are peeled away as if things just happened all the time. When they do a foundation, they find a new era of destruction that took place. I'm having trouble too today, you know.
Maybe we should get our teeth fixed.
Get our teeth fixed.
Anyway,
right.
but no, I know what you're saying, and that's such an interesting thing. And you know, they're finding that in some other areas of the world too.
Yeah.
And they keep digging down, and they keep finding, you know, more and more civilizations that were there. And of course we saw what the recent civilization is doing, all the graffiti here on the walls, which is too bad because these are beautiful buildings, as we can see right here, and these gateways and things. It's really fantastic.
It's always such a source of amazement to me when you can see these magnificent architectural designs and know how long that they've been there, and where do these marvelous people come from, huh?
I don't know, but I'm sure glad that they were there when they were. Well, it gave us a chance to listen to a little Hungarian music there. We always seem to find a lot of street musicians the various places we go, and it just really adds to
it brightens up your day.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And you can throw a few coins there. Now, I'm going to give you a quiz. What is the Hungarian money called? Do you remember?
I think it begins with an L.
It does?
I don't know. I had it written down somewhere. But you see, I don't fool around with that too much. I just use a credit card, and then I don't have to worry about
and you don't have
putting
to
the
worry
money
about
down.
the money?
And then I bring $1 bills because I know exactly what I'm doing with a $1 bill.
Right.
And like for a
and it
tip
seems like
or bargain.
Every place we go, everybody will take a $1
They
American
love
bill,
American
won't they?
money.
Yeah.
Yes, they do, because it's going to increase in value rather than decrease for them. So I find I don't have to fool with it. But, if you have a little computer, it isn't too hard to do that.
Yeah.
No, what's it called?
I don't know.
Oh,
That's why I asked you.
I thought you were going to be the really smart one.
No, I have some at home too, and I save a few of the coins and a few of the bills from most of the countries that we go to, but it gets confusing after a while, and I have forgotten, but I'll try and look that up for the
Always
next show.
good. I have it in a book, but
have it
I'll
in a
look
book?
it up. Next time I'll tell you what it was. I just didn't think it was too important, but I guess money's
Well, it
always
is.
important. I guess, it's
I
always
think so.
important, sure.
Well, now we're in the National Gallery here up on top of the hill, and we are going to take a look at some of the things that are in here. And there are some gorgeous things that are in here. And as she said a little bit earlier, if you really wanted to do this in depth, you'd have to spend the whole day. And of course, we don't do that because we want to hit the highlights, because there's so much to see and so much to do. And I thought that some of these paintings that we're taking a look at right here, and also some of the artwork that we will see as we get into one of the galleries, pretty special stuff. I mean, really nice.
The building itself was so elegant.
Wasn't it, though?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So elegant.
It is nice. And to think again, too, like Betty, as she had mentioned, so many of the buildings had been destroyed, and as you had mentioned, too, with all these civilizations built up on top of them, and it seems like Hungary's had so many wars, unfortunately. Let's hope that they can relax that for a while and that there won't be any more for a while.
So here you are in front of the largest painting in the museum that describes the siege of Buda in 1686, long time ago, when there were Turks all over the place, mosques and minarets and jamis and hammams, these spas. That was Buda in the Middle Ages, because it was occupied by the Turks for 160 years, and they just attached Hungary to their empire, and it was just a department of the Turkish Empire. And then the United Christian Forces at the end of the 17th century set themselves together and finally liberated Buda after 160 years, a long gap, communication gap. But finally, there you see the first man to die was the Pasha himself, so the leader of the Turks, with many wives. He was 70 years old. He is buried still behind a big building in the castle area. And on his tomb, it's written in Hungarian, Arabic, and Turkish that he was a heroic enemy and the peace of God should remain with him. Because in those days people did not hate each other so they were enemies, but it was just part of the game. They did not hate each other. They respected him, so he's buried, and there is a turban on his the thing that they use for burying. So as we move on, and I point out the most, let's say, interesting things. I don't go into details. They are more historic paintings, and it's not real to you what it is, the part of history, and it's not interesting that much for you. But just some things to show how people painted in the 19th century. The historic background is that Hungary was part of the Austrian Empire, but as a kind of a slave country with no rights at all in the first half of the 19th century as well. And we did not have the constitution, they took it away, and we didn't have any rights and so on. We couldn't construct even a bridge over the Danube. They just kept Hungary as a colony, and there were no banks, no bridges, no road, nothing at all. It was just like a big nothing, a breadbasket of the empire, because there was there still is a very good land for wheat growing. So then painters started to paint historic topics to raise a little bit the national feelings, to get people out of this depression, this apathy, and to point out the glorious past. And this is part of it, and the whole museum is part of this 19th century way of thinking in paintings. And this is what they call the academic painting. Everything is dark, darker, darkest. That's about the variation. And it's only the Impressionists at the turn of the century who will bring lots of colors and impressions and life in painting. So this is still academic style that he painted in a room where he viewed things as light and shade, but more shade than light. So here is a scene back to the 1700 about, when these are Hungarians, actually Croatian Hungarians. Croatia was part of Hungary then. Landlords taken, the woman and the two children, taken to Austria, and they were separated from each other afterwards. So the woman was said that if she gives up the castle and goes to Vienna with the children, then they would allow her to be with them, to stay with them. This is one of the highest ranked family in the country. And then, of course, they didn't keep their word, and so she was separated from the children, and she never saw them again. And there you see the whole thing is interesting, just to point out how they try to show the feelings of the people. She is standing proudly, the children also. But the Austrians are sly. You see that the way they keep themselves, they like the fox. And also, so they are the not nice part. And, this is the glorious, the shiny, the pride, and so on. So this is how they try to kind of raise national feelings that we are not that bad anyway, and we will sort it out somehow, and so on. As we move on, it's horror. Most of them are horror. Same thing here. There are two Croatians. So Croatia was a special part of the Hungarian kingdom, which was free to use their language. They had their own school and everything, but it was part of the Hungarian kingdom, meaning that they didn't have their own king. Croatia, which is now part of, not anymore, but was part of Yugoslavia. It was under Hungary until 1920, and they had their separate rights. So these are two Croatian landlords who were not agreed with the Austrians, who dominated the whole Hungary, including in it Croatia, that they set up a treaty with the Turks, which was very unfavorable for Hungary, though we won the battle, but they made a peace which was very unfavorable for Hungary, and they were against it. So of course they were all executed. And same thing, two nice, hard, tough, proud persons sitting, and there are the Austrians, nose up, and so they're very ugly and so not nice at all. This is how they try to describe things. Once more, a horror.
Well, as we said, there were a lot of things to see and a lot of paintings, of course, depicting Hungarian history here in the museum, in the National Gallery, I guess I should say. And so she pointed out to us, of course, that what we were seeing, pretty much the most important paintings that were there, and then we're going to move on into another gallery. Weren't you impressed with these paintings, Betty?
Yes, I was, they were depressing. I kind of like the pastels and stuff, but the artistry, beautiful, beautiful.
These are late Gothic winged altars. Late Gothic meaning 14th century, end of the 14th century, and the Gothic style is characterized by still faces. No emotions, no gestures, nothing on the faces. and as you see here, and there is the dominant color is gold in the back and red. So they are all still lives, like a moment in life when time stops. That's Gothic style. And the winged altars would mean that in those days people were illiterate in the first place. And also, this was a kind of art that they opened the altar, well, let's say it was whatever Eastern, then they opened the altar, and then people could visually see what it is about. As they were not so intelligent and they couldn't read and write, so even if they had written it in Latin, nobody would have understood. The Bible was only translated in the 16th century, so until that time nobody understood a word in the church. But as they had to go, they did go to the church. So these winged altars, these are pieces of the altars. They were big, but in the Turkish wars they disappeared, most of them. And then in the 20th century, when this museum was founded, then they collected from all over the country these pieces of the medieval Hungarian art. They mostly come either from Transylvania, which is not anymore part of Hungary since the First World War, or the Upper Lands, which is again not part of Hungary since the First World War. As in the Peace Treaty of Paris in 1920, we lost 2/3 of the territories and 3/5 of the population. And now we are small, but we were much bigger than that. So these come from areas which are not anymore part of Hungary, but still they were in the country at that time. And so here you see like stands, as you see, all biblical themes, and they are not always nice. Like a stand, in the most stand, face and vision, just killing of the other. But I think those people, if you consider that those people had a different way of looking at life, then you understand it more. So that the point from where they viewed things was different. They believed strongly in life that goes on. Higher order. Thank you. So that was their point of view. So this earth things was just secondary for them. If you look at them from this point of view, then you understand it more and you enjoy it more. So Gothic, you see there are no shades, no shadows painted, and there are very still, strict faces, angel-looking faces, no emotions at all. So these people were different, and their way of viewing the world was different. They have emotions on their faces, which is very unique in Gothic art. The Madonna doesn't have, but these two, they have an expression on the face, which makes it quite special. They are all wooden, painted by gold, and so we of course cannot touch them. Even the people of the museum can only touch them with the written description of the boss, because you can imagine they are about 700 years old, and they are still there after so many wars. Turks and Austrians and wars and everything coming around, they are still there, so they are very precious. Quite unique in European history to have so many in one place.
You know, Betty, I kind of wondered when we were going through, I thought, okay, now these were taken out of a lot of churches, the statuary and the altarpieces and stuff. Now, are those churches still standing, or were they destroyed by one of the many conflicts that Hungary was involved with, or what? I don't think she told us that, or maybe she did. Maybe I wasn't listening.
I don't think so. But Marv, they don't have the churches now that they did have. You know, there was a great period of Catholicism, Roman Catholic Catholicism in Hungary, and then with the Turks coming in, and everything changes, and so. Perhaps some of these were just put away to preserve them at the time.
Well, you know that's true, because she said on this hill that there were a lot of caves, and I guess during a lot of the conflicts that when invaders would come in of one sort or another, that they did take a lot of these things out, and that they did hide them in some of the caves there on the Buddhist side. So yeah, I guess you're absolutely right on that. But you know, it's good that they did this, and now that they're in a museum, so that these beautiful pieces can be appreciated by everybody.
Yeah, so much, and think of how much was destroyed. So we're so fortunate to be able to have on display what we can see and appreciate.
And you think, even as we're talking today, that there's more destruction that's going on in that part of the world too. That bombs are raining down on places that are going to
be
have
like
the same
this.
thing that are going to be,
Yes.
destroy some of the artwork and the beautiful things, of course, that
Along with the lives of
yes.
so many people.
Yeah. It just seems as though the more civilized we get, the more uncivilized we become. I don't know. I don't understand it, but maybe we're not supposed to. Anyway, we're going to be leaving the gallery here, and I just want to get a few shots as we were trying to go outside, because once I got outside, Betty, I'm telling you, I just really love that blue Danube.
You go bananas, don't you?
I do. It is such a beautiful spot, and I think Budapest is kind of one of my favorite places, at least for it's a photographer's paradise.
Oh, it
that's
is.
for sure.
Well, I prefer to be outdoors myself. I can't take a whole lot of museums. I mean, I get impatient. I run out of gas,
well, that's it. And I think fortunately on our trips we hit some of the museum, but we hit, as I said before, we hit some of the high points, and we don't always do that too. It depends on if it is an important thing to see in the country or the city where we are, and it will give us a better understanding of the history and also of the people. There's a parliament. I tell you,
Yes,
that
you're falling in love with that one, haven't you? Huh?
I've made 2 trips now to Budapest, and I've never been in that building. But my next trip, so help me, I'm going to go.
Well,
I'm going to go into that building. I want to see it.
Put that on the agenda.
Okay.
Like we keep saying, there's only so much that you can do, and what we try to do really is hit the highlights. That's why going here, like we just did to the museum, you have to see these really important things.
Otherwise, you wouldn't understand.
But we spent probably 45 minutes total there.
45 minutes and maybe an hour, because we also had coffee there too.
Yeah,
so.
we had the coffee. But I meant we didn't go in like you might do at the Prado, where you do spend.
you have to be there all day for that, sure.
We usually arrange that on a free day so that you can stay as long as you want.
Right.
But you do have to see these things.
And especially if this is the first time that you've been to a country or a city, you have to do this to get your bearings and understand it. And then a lot of times this will, as we've said before, whet your appetite to go back. But, this trip that we did to Eastern Europe, which we're showing you the episodes of, I was so amazed at so much that we saw, and we were not worn out by doing it. I mean, we saw a lot. We had a lot of time to rest, but I don't know. There was just so much to absorb, and that's why I'm so happy that we were able to videotape this and bring it back for all of you folks to hopefully enjoy our
we're going to do it again.
Work.
Yeah, we'll do it again, because not in the year 2000, because it'll be just awful.
Yeah.
But
in fact, while we were here, the traffic was unbearable in Budapest. I mean, we waited many times just to get
going
through the red light, or the green light, I guess I should say. Anyway, enough of that. If you're interested in the trips we have coming up, please give Betty a call at
488-7443.
And we will see you next time. We'll join you back in Budapest. Bye-bye.